So ladies and gentlemen, I am back after 2 weeks of not doing a news roundup video. So just in case you weren't aware, because I know some of you are like, Boba's neglecting all of the DC news. I was on honeymoon. I thought I said that in every video that went up while I was away. But either way, I am here now, and I've got so much news to cover that I can't get through all of it in this video. I just can't. So I'm going to make this one a dedicated DC Studios news roundup video. I know there's stuff going on with Daredevil, my god, the Avengers stuff. We're just going to have to get into that as of when we get into that. I don't even know if I can get through every DC story that I want to get through today and catch up on as well. We're going to start with the most recent stuff as well. Business, shall I say, is back to usual. We've got Cinemacon, guys. Another thing before I get into today's news roundup. Cinemacon, Warner Brothers panel tomorrow, Tuesday, Superman trailer. I will be covering it because of time zone differences. Don't kill me, but I might have to cover it Wednesday. It might be the early hours of the morning for me. I don't know. You might get a reaction. I'm just putting it out there, but I'm going to be very busy. Very excited. Hopefully we get the trailer as of when people see it at Cinemacon. Hopefully they upload it on their YouTube channel. That remains to be seen. Other than that, I got sick right at the end of my honeymoon, so if my voice is more nasally than usual, you know why. But go ahead, leave a like on this video, guys, if you go on to enjoy it. It feels so good to be back. Honestly, for me, it's really weird not recording for 2 weeks. Hope you enjoyed the content while I was away. But let's get into story number one. Story number one, I have to kind of put a spoiler warning here. Don't worry, not right this second. You know, these videos are timestamped, so you will have your opportunity to skip ahead if you don't want to know anything. But full context here, as of like a couple of days ago before I came back, there was a casting for Superman that got put out online by Viewer Anon. Now, Viewer Anon is a scooper who I would say, you know, has been pretty, he's had quite a few hits that, my usual rule of thumb is scoopers, hit or miss, but Viewer Anon put something out there with regards to Jor-El, and I want to give you the opportunity to skip to the next timestamp if you don't want to know anything, and the reason for that is, well, you might be thinking initially like, Boba, why this is it's just like a casting, right? How is that a massive spoiler? It's just like how David Corenswet got announced to be playing Superman, Rachel Brosnahan or Anthony Carrigan as Metamorpho. How is this a spoiler? Well, I mean, think about it, right? When it comes to Jor-El, we've heard nothing. I mean, nothing. Like, literally nothing, to the point of where I was even thinking, in this iteration, as adaptations don't copy and paste from the source material, will, Gunn be doing things a little bit different, where, despite having the Fortress, could Superman have only had his Fortress robot Calyx, but not truly unlocked the Jor-El part of the Fortress? I don't know. I was open to anything. But it could be, and we've entertained this as well, that there's a casting for Jor-El. We've heard nothing about him because it's kind of a low-key cool casting that they want to surprise us with in the movie, even if it's for like a teeny tiny amount of screen time. Well, that appears to be the case, and the reason why I wanted to give people the opportunity to skip ahead is because, Viewer Anon is getting quite a bit of heat because, from what I understand, the backstory behind this is such that I think he got called a liar by some Redditor, and he kind of got pissed off about that. He's like, you calling me a liar? Why you want to call me a liar? Well, I'm going to put this out. This is who's playing Jor-El. Ha! Just you wait till you see it in the movie, and it could while this is still a rumor and not confirmed, if it does turn out to be true, sure, some of you may just still think, oh, well, it's just technically a casting announcement that they didn't intend to put out. I'm not bothered about it. But it's still something that Gunn, the actor themselves, like whoever was involved in production, would have liked you to have been surprised about it when you saw the movie itself. Like, you get the picture. So what are my thoughts about it? Well, getting into spoiler territory in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, apparently Bradley Cooper could be playing Jor-El in Superman. What do I think of this? I'm actually a big fan of it. Believe it or not, I really, really am. I thought maybe they would go for a younger actor because, Bradley Cooper is 50. And again, I do need to put this out there. Viewer Anon might be wrong. But I was thinking that it would have been cool to have Jor-El truly, there's this weird familiarity, yet so close, yet so far away from Kal-El to his father. To see his father be his age when he died on Krypton. Like, seeing, your dad, who you've never seen before, look just like you in terms of age is kind of a weird thing, rather than the kind of cliche typical bearded father look that you might get a little bit later. I'm not saying like Russell Crowe looked ancient or anything like that or whatever. You get my point. But Bradley Cooper, he definitely is Jor-El material. Now, Bradley Cooper is a casting in the DCU that we've been talking about for ages. Like, there was word out there a while ago that maybe James Gunn and Bradley Cooper did indeed talk about the role of Lex Luthor, which, believe it or not, I was a big fan of. Like, Bradley Cooper is a really versatile actor. Of course, I can imagine him shaving his head and being a pretty damn intimidating Lex Luthor. Now, you don't have to agree with me there, but I do feel like he's one of those versatile actors who could play quite a few roles in the DCU. So, of course, Jor-El is one of them. The only thing I have in my head is, like, even though I love the idea of him playing Jor-El, I don't want to use the word, like, is he wasted on Jor-El? Because, he could play a really cool Jor-El. So I don't want to say that, but could they have saved, now he's playing Jor-El, he's probably not going to play somebody else in the DCU that could have been, like, even cooler if he had a bit of a bigger, I don't know, character to play. I don't know who that character could be, by the way, that I'm talking about. But yes, for now, apparently Bradley Cooper is playing Jor-El, and Viewer Anon says he appears in the first couple of minutes of the movie, so I promise this is not a big spoiler. Again, a lot of people took issue with that, because, like, just because you don't regard that as a big spoiler, it obviously wasn't announced like Jonathan, Martha, Metamorpho, Lois Clark, Jimmy, everyone like that. So it's not really, this is the thing about leak. It's a weird culture, isn't it? Because people love hearing movie spoilers online from scoopers. So I guess I would love to know your thoughts on this. It is interesting to me. I mean, I'm trying to play both sides here in terms of people love like the most spoilery of spoilers or like casting leaks. Yet sometimes, I guess with this situation, they're like, how dare you? Yeah, I feel like there's been worse leaks and spoilers out there, scooped by scoopers, that, weren't intended. Of course, the studio didn't want that out there, where people were like, give me more. So what are your thoughts about this? If it does turn out to be true, let me know. And speaking of just Superman the Fortress, we are getting some new Superman promotional art. So from Future Boba here, I did speak about this for like a couple of minutes, but I've been told that these are actually unauthorized marketing, promo artwork images that were put on the website that are circulating around social media that you may have already seen. It's nothing too crazy. It's honestly just David Corenswet in the Superman suit in different merchy kind of print poses, similar to that backpack photo that came out a little while ago. That was allowed because that was actually an on-shelf product. So yeah, if you want to know my thoughts about this, again, it's nothing too crazy, but obviously I don't want to risk the channel and any copyright issues. So if you've posted this on social media, do be aware that Warner Brothers is quite vigilant when it comes to stuff like this. Again, I remember all the way back in 2021 when bloody calendar promotional art was being taken down for the Batman, and there were channels that were having DMCA takedowns because of the artwork on a bloody calendar. So you can never be too careful. Anyway, back to past Boba. Now, as of March 28th, moving on now, Superman apparently had a test screening, and we also had Daniel RPK, again, take this with a grain of salt, but he said Superman had a test screening, and from what I hear, people loved it. Now, you guys know my thoughts of this. I truly look at stuff like, I'd like to entertain and talk about a rumor. I still don't necessarily fully believe it. Like, I don't know if it's going to be good just because apparently people in the test screening found it good, but I want to deliver the information out there. So apparently, according to RPK, that test screening went well and people loved it. And we did have, I think, another test screening before this. So around March 24th, we had DC Film News saying here, unconfirmed reports from alleged recent positive screening of Superman. So not a comedy, but did have some funny moments in it. Exactly kind of, again, rumor here, but let's just hypothetically assume this is true for the sake of this video's conversation. This is what I've said all along. I really don't think Gunn's going to do the whole Peacemaker, Creature Commandos humor in this film. Like, obviously not. Obviously not. I think it will have funny moments in it, but not as far as Guardians. But it will kind of still have a consistency of, I don't like using the word severity, but, you know, like a Superman movie, what you'd want the Superman movie to be, but have this levity of Superman and its supporting characters like Jimmy and whatnot. Next up, characters aren't who people think they are. Well, I think that has to reference the freaking Ultraman, you know, speculation. Now, what's interesting, you know, when you go to this DCU Leaks Reddit post, they are saying that this is an unverified user who claims that their source attended one of these recent test screenings. Now, there's no spoilers here. It's just general vague things that the source said to the user that, hey, this was my experience in the movie. Again, online speculation is dead wrong. Okay, you know, again, of course, we need to take this with a grain of salt, but I wouldn't be surprised. You know, most speculation that I love to do here on the channel, even in discussion series, is it's not like in an effort to spoil the film. It's just fueling fan excitement. But of course, what comes with that is we could be wrong. Like about 85% of it. Or maybe it would be cool to see when we do actually see things that we could have been right about some things. But this user who went to a test screening apparently said that the online speculation is dead wrong. Okay. Now, by the way, in addition to this post, there are some other things out there that, all while it needs to be taken with a grain of salt, it might end up being true, maybe. And what I'm referring to is apparently there are some actual legit movie leaks coming out of some of these test screenings that I just wanted to warn you about. I'm not covering them here, but just beware, even though they might not be true, that some plot points are getting out. But stuff like this where it's like, Crypto plays an important role. But it felt a little tacked in. That part felt artificial. That's like, okay, well, that's what they thought. Crypto does play an important role, but will he feel a bit too forced in the movie? I don't know. Hopefully I won't feel that way. Hopefully that isn't even true, but it might be true. We're going to have to wait and see. Maybe he will feel like a little bit unnatural. Stuff like this that I'm reading is like, you know, that's fine. But like actual plot spoilers, that's too far. But be warned, guys. Now, other little parts from this, again, unverified test screening experience, if you will. There is no after credits scene, at least not that they were shown. One could be there, but their source can't confirm. That wouldn't surprise me. They probably wouldn't show an after credits scene in a test screening. While Rick Flag Sr. is in the film and he plays a rather short role, there were no nods to Creature Commandos that their source noticed. Note that their source is not a DC file, so they could have missed something. That's my point as well. This source who went to this test screening could be quite the normie, if you know what I mean. So like, you know, hypothetically assuming this is true, they might not have picked it up anyway, even if there was one, right? So there was a nod to Amanda Waller, though it wasn't an audience wink, and it's a blink and you'll miss it. The source's impressions were that the film is good from a person who doesn't follow DC films. The source is not a comic book buff, DC or Marvel, but they enjoyed it. That's really important, again, if we assume this is true, because, you know, I'm a big Superman fan. I'm sure I'll find some, like, even if I have, like, heavy criticisms of this film, I'm sure I'll find something to really enjoy. What I think a lot of us want to happen is the general movie-going audience, they need to enjoy this movie without being a major hardcore Superman fan, right? Or, you know, tuning into Boba's weekly news roundups. You know, they just need to enjoy it. So it's good to know that this source's impression, while they're not comic book buff, DC or Marvel, they saw it and they're like, you know what? Pretty sick movie. I enjoyed it. The secondary plot of the film focuses primarily on Lois and Clark. Brosnahan stole every scene she was in. Their source loves Miss Maisel, though, so they could be biased. Fair enough, okay, but I do believe that. Like, again, if this is true, I fully expect Rachel Brosnahan, to steal every scene that she's in. Focusing primarily on Lois and Clark in the secondary plot, absolutely believe that. Gunn said over and over again, this film is about Lois and Clark, you know, Superman. Like, it is about them despite the, oh my god, there's too many characters kind of thing. And speaking of that, we're going to get into that in just a second. Nicholas Hoult was good as Lex Luthor, but he overacts a bit. He does anger very well, but he was a bit much in other scenes. Now, believe it or not, I love Nicholas Hoult, but I could see this being true. Now, all I mean by that is, while I'm very excited for his Lex Luthor, I do wonder if, like, you know, when trying to be like a over the top, like really angry Lex in certain moments, could that come across as like snapping too much in certain moments? I'm not saying that this is true, obviously, grain of salt. I'm just saying I could see it being true. I could still see myself really enjoying Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, But it just wouldn't surprise me if maybe there is a goofy moment or two where, and I hope it wouldn't take me out of it, but like, you know, from one perspective, it could be seen that he could overact. I hope that's not the case. I hope that any moment he's intimidating or whatever, it's a very like severe moment. And you feel that intimidation. I think we want nothing. You know, I think when you're going for intimidation, you don't want to go over the top to the point of where the audience goes, you know, maybe that's cringing, like, because it's like, you kind of lost me there because you went over the top. I don't know. I hope that doesn't happen. Apparently, he does anger very well, but he was a bit much in other scenes. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm just saying that's the kind of, like, rumor test screening comment from somebody who went to a test screening where it's like, okay, I can see what you mean. I'm gonna have to see it for myself. Hopefully that's not the case. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean Nicholas Hoult still wouldn't do a great job overall. And it could even be seen like, you know, there could be like a Teschmacher kind of moment in there. We're going to have to wait and see, obviously. His two goons were delightful and worked well with Lex's energy. The Source felt they helped, but weren't absolutely necessary. I can understand that with Teschmacher and Otis. Maybe they feel like they might not even know who they are, according to, you know, this Source not being a comic book buff, but they might think, oh yeah, like, should they have really been in it? But like, to us, it's like, okay, we understand why Lex's goons or henchmen were in it, because they usually are a part of Lex's crew. Some of the effects don't work super well, though their source doesn't know if it was an early cut. True. The scenes at the Ice Palace were a little rough. The Ice Palace. Okay, I expect the scenes at the Fortress to be some of the more easy to pull off great-looking scenes. I know they built partially a practical set. I've seen it myself behind the scenes. But obviously there's like backdrop moments behind the set where you would obviously have some kind of backplate situation to like fill in the depth of the fortress a bit more. So I hope that's not true, obviously, because, you know, I would like the fortress to look clean. Some of the effects of the big monster, I'm assuming she's talking about the kaiju, were a little rough, and their source thought his face looked a little bit goofy. I think, you know, this could be taken either way, as, you know, hypothetically assuming this is true. I think people were already saying this from the trailers. Will this kaiju look good? I know we've only seen it from a side angle or the foot as Superman saves the girl, but I can easily see this being a talking point if we see more of it in the official trailer at Cinemacon or as of when we see the movie. People were already calling it a goofy, weird, big-eyed monster. Obviously, that's the intention, but people might be like still, oh, that's like the wrong execution. This wouldn't surprise me. Their source said that it has a lot of characters, but didn't feel like they took away from the main plot. Thank you. That is what I've been thinking about this film the whole time, just because there's a dozen, bazillion movies out there that are about a titular character, but they have a large supporting cast, and those supporting cast help tell the story of the main character. But everyone conflated that issue to be like, this movie's not going to be a Superman movie. We don't need to go over that again. Again, obviously, this isn't necessarily true, this post, but if it is, it's good to hear from like a normie, if you will, that like, oh yeah, there's a lot of characters in the movie, but it didn't feel like it took away from like the main plot, the main Superman plot of the film. Now, up next, ladies and gentlemen, like this kind of came out of nowhere. I remember literally being in like one of the Disney parks when this went down, and I was like, oh my God. So Colin Farrell in talks to star in Sgt Rock for DC Studios. I think this is still the case, at least as of right now. It doesn't mean he's got the role. It doesn't mean it's absolutely happening. Obviously, we heard how there could have been a couple of other actors in talks for Sgt Rock. Apparently, Daniel Craig was never a serious like thing. James Gunn said that it was just like, hey, Luca Guadagnino's doing it. So like Daniel Craig came up, but he was never like, hey, yeah, I'm actually talking about the role. So that wasn't what everyone thought it was at the time. As the Hollywood Reporter go and say here, if a deal makes, it also shows that Gunn and Safran are not afraid of repurposing actors from recent DC projects into current ones. And yeah, absolutely. So first of all, what are my thoughts on this? Yes, Colin Farrell is so, like talking about versatile actors earlier. Colin Farrell, I mean, I shouldn't need to talk about this. He is an incredible actor. Again, I've loved this man since I saw In Bruges, when I was like way too young to see it, probably. Minority Report. Like, actually, I think I was obsessed with him when I first saw Alexander, which, you know, isn't like the best movie in the world, but like back then, like I loved Alexander. But can I see him as like Sgt Rock in World War II, in scenes like what you're seeing on screen right now? Yes. Like, he couldn't, like, obviously him playing the Penguin, Oz Cobb, in the Penguin series, the Batman Part 2, he kind of doesn't look anything like his usual self. So seeing Colin Farrell as a soldier, like Sergeant Rock, yes. And I think I can easily imagine him doing it, man. Easily. So I hope he takes it. They're apparently saying this would still happen, even though, like, the Penguin Season 2 plans to happen. Like, eventually, they can still make it work because the movie is on track to shoot this summer in the production hub in England, which would be, I believe, Leavesden. So I think this project probably attracts Colin Farrell because he's got a relationship, clearly, quite a good one with DC Studios, like Warner Brothers in general. He plays the Penguin, but like that's in the Elseworlds, the Batman universe, and this is obviously, yes, it's still DC Studios, DC, but it's in the DCU, and it's like, with James Gunn and Peter Safran's approach to be like, hey, every movie is just going to be a big movie. It's not going to have that cookie-cutter cinematic universe feel necessarily all the time. Well, some will more than others. Some movies like Swamp Thing, you've heard me ramble about this before, will feel like an independent kind of, like truly like authentic, potentially crazy, amazing horror movie Swamp Thing, right? So the same thing with Sergeant Rock. It will feel like a war movie that it's like, how crazy is this that this is technically in the DCU? So I think that authenticity, movie per movie approach that James Gunn is doing probably really attracts Colin Farrell to it. And plus, it's like such a different kind of role anyway, one where he will have his own likeness under that military uniform. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't mean that this is going to end up happening. For all I know, by the time I post this, it might be like, oh no, he's passed on it or whatever. But I think they know how good Colin Farrell is. I think everyone does. I know he's probably going to cost a pretty penny, considering how well he did for Warner Brothers with the Penguin. And I think they'll be willing to, you know, pull out the pennies from the purse, if you will, to secure him in another project, knowing that he will bring, you know, his reputation and ability to a DCU project like Sergeant Rock, which people are, you know, some people aren't like fully confident in the lesser known characters compared to being like, hey, where's the Wonder Woman project? Where's the Justice League project right out the gate? Maybe bringing in Colin Farrell, be like, hey, here's another Colin Farrell project. Like, this is in the DCU. It's going to be a really cool World War II movie in the DCU. And you know how good Colin Farrell is. So, like, maybe that works out. But I'd love to know your thoughts on that. I know I'm late covering this. This came out quite a while ago. But yes, I was very, very intrigued when I first heard about it. And no, I don't really see this interfering with the Batman Part 2. You know, supposedly to start shooting this summer. And, you know, the Batman Part 2, I mean, as far as we're right now, isn't until like the end of this year. But speaking of, a lot of people were worried and sending me, hey, Boba, what do you think of this, man? The wording here, like you know, everyone's like going crazy online. DC Studios hopes that the Batman Part 2 will begin filming by the end of 2025. So it comes from the same article. And because it's the Hollywood Reporter, people were kind of thinking, okay, the fact that they put that wording in there, again, let's read it. The actor, ripped by CAA, is likely to return to the part in Reeves' The Batman sequel, which DC Studios hopes could be shooting by the end of the year. At this point, with how long this movie is taking, obviously, to, you know, start its production, like, there's reasons, there's other reasons that we've heard behind the scenes that Matt Reeves has been dealing with. Long story short, the movie's taken a while to get here, but it should be happening towards the end of this year. Reading something like that makes sense to me. Again, which DC Studios hopes could be shooting by the end of the year. Can come across concerning because it's like, why don't you know that it's shooting at the end of the year? Well, that's, I think, because of what I was already talking about. Obviously, they hope that it does, but since there has been some stuff behind the scenes which has delayed the progress of the script a little bit, with some of the personal things, if you will, that Matt Reeves has been, you know, dealing with, it's kind of like, hey, well, we hope that it starts shooting at the end of the year. basically. It's like what Robert Pattinson says. I think hope so, right? Otherwise I'm going to be an old Batman kind of thing. I think that when Matt Reeves says that they are kind of like finishing up the script and stuff like that, they are pretty much getting there. Matt Reeves' draft, his first draft, is his final script submission, if you will. So that's why a script technically hasn't been handed in, but eventually it will. And he still has time to do that. Again, let's just say it starts shooting midway or so through November. The pre-production, the gearing up and everything, let's give it 6 months like the first movie. That takes us to May. So let's just say, this is what I've said before. If I haven't heard by the end of May or like around June that the script hasn't been like complete, and so the pre-production hasn't been greenlit, the production itself hasn't been fully greenlit to go into that 6-month period of pre-production to be ready to start rolling cameras by November, that's when I'd be a bit like, oh, okay, what's caused this kind, I'm expecting a delay, and why is there a delay? What are we going to hit? Basically, that's when I'll be like that. But for now, I know we're in March, but we've still got April, we've still got May. Then I'll be coping as we go into June. But if, by a certain point in June, we haven't heard, any kind of Hollywood report, some kind of story where it's or James Gunn himself over on Thread saying, I'm thrilled to announce or, confirm that, yes, Matt Reeves' script is greenlit officially for part 2. It's going into pre-production. 6 months rolls by, boom, filming, cameras rolling around about November or so, right? That is the way it should go. But for now, yes, just because I had a lot of you asking me this, reading the Hollywood Reporter saying DC Studios hopes could be shooting by the end of the year, that all adds up if you hear everything I've said. But there was another concern, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I don't really truly know what to make of this one. Again, I had people tagging me saying, Boba, have you heard about this? Because I think people were like, why isn't he talking about it or even tweeting about it? So the Batman Part 2 is now listed as untitled Batman film and categorized as action, adventure, sci-fi, fantasy on the official Warner Brothers Spain website. Now, the reason why this has caused some, slight panic, I guess you could say, is because it was originally listed as the Batman Part 2. Now, granted, this was on the Spain website, so it's first there. It's well, how do we know that the Spain official website just didn't, for some reason, do something different? I don't know. Maybe that's a bit of cope there. It's still an official website, right? So it was the Batman Part 2. They, for some reason, changed it to untitled Batman film. Okay. Not major red flag for me, but it's a bit like, okay, well, I'm just coping here, but maybe it's just, it's random Warner Brothers Spain website doing something random. And then the genre listing changed as well. And instead of it just being action-adventure, alongside the Batman Part 2 title, it's now untitled Batman film with sci-fi and fantasy. Which, as we know, people were reading into this being like, well, this isn't a fantastical fantasy Batman. So you would kind of think that DCU Batman would not only be action adventure, but sci-fi and fantasy. You wouldn't really always, this is what, again, a lot of people were adding into the conversation, add all these other labels of sci-fi, fantasy to the grounded Matt Reeves Batman, right? But then I hear some people saying, well, technically, you can still add that into this because it's still a fictional thing. Going out as a vigilante, as Matt Reeves said himself, is still a fantastical thing because it doesn't happen in our world. You don't have a man flying off a rooftop with a wingsuit bat cape, or a bat ears cowl, do you? So without going around and round and round in circles there, this is legit in the sense of you literally go on the website and that is what happened. Now, to entertain that conversation for a second, I have it up here. 1st of October, 2027, untitled Batman film, action, adventure, sci-fi, fantasy. It was literally the case that this said the Batman Part 2. Why is it untitled now? Well, this could be maybe to do with what Peter Safran said while Warner Brothers, and, linking it back to what we were just discussing, they hope that it starts shooting by the end of the year. Matt Reeves is the Batman. Remember that quote I said about Peter Safran where it's still rubbed me the wrong way in terms of I don't get why you would say that. Maybe I'm reading too into it. Maybe it was just a joke. But why say when the interviewer asked, and I'm paraphrasing here, hey, did the original delay for the Batman delay anything for the Brave and the Bold now that the Batman Part 2 is coming out in 2027 October? And Peter Safran said, well, we announced that October 2027, there will be, emphasis on this, a Batman movie, end quote. So, like, he's kind of saying, well, we announced that, you know, October 2027, there will be a Batman movie. We didn't say it'd be part 2, did we? And so, like, that technically, he didn't say that last part, but that technically links up to, okay, we've now changed on the Warner Brothers Spain website, the Batman Part 2, October 2027, to untitled Batman film. That literally, again, I'm feeding the rumor here, or the panic. But I'm just trying to, like, play devil's advocate, being like, okay, let's hypothetically assume that this could be what people are worrying about. Well, that links quite literally to that interview asking that question, and Peter Safran saying, well, we announced that October 2027 there will be a Batman movie. A Batman movie is now technically a, yes, 2027 untitled Batman film. No longer the Batman Part 2, but not necessarily not the Batman Part 2. It's just that one way or another, there will be a Batman movie in October 2027. If Matt Reeves can't get the script in order by May or June, with enough time to start filming by the end of this year, to then get the film out by October 2027, which is more than enough time in my opinion. If they start filming November this year, around about then we are going to expedite Brave and the Bold. And this has been something I've been discussing for a while anyway. The reason why Gunn is working with the writer right now in Brave and the Bold, he's describing himself as the driving force behind it. Like, they're really pushing it right now. I've entertained the theory that they could be really going gung-ho on the Brave and the Bold, just in case things do take, yes, even longer with the Batman Part 2. But if the Batman Part 2 works out in the ways that it should, and it does start filming this year, where they can kind of slow the brakes a bit on the Brave and the Bold. It's just that work would have been done to the point of like, oh, we've got things like this far ahead, we can start doing the Brave and the Bold whenever we kind of want, because like we're already this far ahead. It's just now we're kind of slowing the brakes a bit because Matt Reeves, it does turn out that he is ready to go. But if he isn't, we've already got this ready to get, kind of ready to go, if you know what I mean. That kind of thing. I know that's kind of like it truly is a theory, but that does line up with the whole speculation of, okay, you've changed the Batman Part 2 listing for October 2027 to untitled Batman film now. You've also now changed it to not only action and adventure, but also sci-fi and fantasy. Could that fit in with the fantastical DCU Batman? All of this stuff. Now, I don't want to panic people because on the flip side, hey, this could just be nothing. Despite what Safran said at the DC Studios press release of, well, we announced that in 2027 there will be a Batman movie, that could still not be what I was fearing it could be. The title change could still just be, oh, like Warner Brothers Spain website just doing something weird. The genre change could also, or additions could just be something weird, and really, like, I admit, like, the more I'm saying this, the more I know that there's going to be comments being like, come on, Boba, something fishy's going on here. It's just, I don't think we should get carried away, but of course, I wanted to entertain both sides. Hopefully it's nothing. Hopefully Matt Reeves will be ready to start shooting by November, and hopefully that script will be turned in to be greenlit for the pre-production period of 6 months come May or June. But until then, like, guys, I would say, like, that's my advice for now. Until May or June, unless, like, there's some breaking news that happens before then that says one way or the other, until May or June, we just won't know. Like, because that is absolutely, from just the industry perspective of the way things need to go for it to start filming come the end of this year. So until then, we will keep, like, we'll watch this space, I suppose. Now, in some Lanterns news, we had various other things. I don't want to spend too long on here because this video is getting long enough as it is already, and I still haven't covered everything. But, you know, we had castings for Jon Stewart's father, but then also a younger version of him. We also spoke, I think, before I went away, the casting of Jon Stewart's mother, but there's also a younger version of her. So it's like, clearly there's going to be flashbacks that are explored in the Lantern series. Nothing crazy with these castings, but I'd love to know any theories that you guys have with regards to the fact that we're going to get into Jon Stewart's personal life. I also fully expect the same with Hal Jordan. Again, I know a lot of people are like, what's going on with Carol? Where's Carol? Like, again, like, I've introduced ideas, like, I know people might hate this, but, like, what if Hal has lost Carol due to illness or something or another? I don't know. But, like, they could get into flashbacks with Carol and Hal, like, in the past, that contextualize where Hal Jordan is at in present day. But we also had from Collider doing an interview with James Hawes, the director of Lanterns, or maybe one of the directors. He spoke about his vision for the series and how he came to direct the project, saying, "I've worked with the team at HBO Max 3 times before. I set up Snowpiercer with Sarah Aubrey and Joey Chavez, and I've worked with them on The Alienist and Raised by Wolves." But there's some like little comments here that I found fascinating to give us more of the flavor and tone of Lanterns. So he says, "There is a very particular humor that they brought to this. It's very rooted in a way that I like to think we achieve with Slow Horses." Great show, by the way. If you haven't seen Slow Horses, Gary Oldman, like amazing show on Apple TV, that I achieve with things like my Black Mirrors. And yet there is a rich vein of humor running through it. So again, it was about that tone. I'm such a huge fan of Damon Lindelof and Chris Mundy and the writing that they've done in the past. So don't think that Lanterns is going to be, again, because I know people are going to misconstrue it as being like Lanterns is going to be like this humorous series. Like, not necessarily, but if you've watched Slow Horses, it's like a very serious detective kind of like show where you have like these misfit spies in England doing their thing with Gary Oldman's character, but as severe and as high stakes as it can get. It does have these like moments of levity, but like that's absolutely to not be mistaken as, oh, this is like some kind of really humorous show. It's really craftily done. So I know exactly what James Hawes means by, and it really gives me a good idea of Lanterns with, you know, Carl Chandler and Aaron Pierce, Jon Stewart, with what kind of vibe we could get, despite this being about a murder in the American heartland, with this town, with these community secrets that are emerging that somehow link to this ancient horror. Again, let me know what you think about what I said there. If you've seen Slow Horses, let me know if you know what he's talking about as well. He continues to say, "Listen, it all starts from the script. When you turn those pages, can you get the smell of it? You always find a scene or two that makes you think, you know, I can't wait to be stood beside the camera and the cast directing this scene on the day. If that happens on turning the pages, you know that this is something you have to take seriously." And that absolutely happened with Lanterns. To some extent, it's a swerve. Superheroes are not somewhere I've really played before, but it's created in such a way, and I can't tell you much, that it bewitched me. Hawes went on to discuss the series' grounded tone, which is a departure from the star-spanning outer space adventures from the Green Lantern comic books. It doesn't lack its sci-fi magic, but it's done in a world where you accept that these things just are. They don't need the extra sprinkle of sci-fi fairy dust. It works within a physical world that we've come to know. So what he's saying there is kind of what, again, I've thought about with Lanterns. Lanterns is in the world with Superman and his Crypto the Superdoc and Metamorpho. It's all in the DCU continuity and canon. It's in the same world. But in Lanterns, I don't think they're going to really flare you, as he says, like the sprinkle of extra sci-fi fairy dust of Crypto flying in. It's going to feel true detective, grounded, but you also just know that this is in the world, like they're already owning that this is just a world where heroes are out there and these things just are. It works within the physical world that we've come to know in the DCU, or will come to know with Superman in the live-action DCU. And yes, they will have power rings that glow, and they're going to do lantern construct stuff, no doubt about that. But I think if you read between the lines, is what we've been vibing. Imagine truly, again, I'm not saying it's going to be a copy and paste. I'm really not setting up that expectation. But imagine Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, True Detective Season 1, but if they had lantern rings and did some lantern stuff in there, that's the kind of vibe I am really thinking. I really like that vision, because they're not going to deny that it's in the DCU world, but it's going to take a bit more of a severe, tunnel-visioned approach to what this investigation in this town is. And, you're not necessarily going to see metahumans left, right, and center, or how in Creech Commandos, they're in Pokolistan, they go into this kind of brothel and they see this electric metahuman. I don't think you're going to come across these outcast metahumans randomly in this, American heartland town diner. But they're still out there. You get what I'm saying. He was cautious about saying too much about the series. I don't think I can tease that yet. You've talked about the rootedness with James Gunn. It's an extraordinary combination of cast. I've been on the set the last 4 and a bit weeks. The way the cast is landing is electric. I'm thrilled by who we've got here. I don't think DC fans will be in any way disappointed. I hope. I really hope. I know James Gunn has already spoken about how excited he is, so watch this space. So to me, guys, some more little tidbits there. A man who has been on the ground for 4.5 weeks on the Lantern show, giving us, I would say, a bit of a vibe check of the show. Let me know your thoughts on not only my thoughts, but of course, what James Hawes, the director, had to say as well. Now, there are some other little tidbit DC stuff like Supergirl filming, actual set photos, and it looks like they really tried to hide it, but there's some drone footage that is flying above. Probably photos that I can't use, but nothing crazy right now, but it does feel like maybe, just maybe, we could get a look at the Supergirl suit. But, you know, I'd like to think that James Gunn would have released a photo of Kara, you know, Millie Alcock in the Supergirl suit itself if they were actually that concerned about these set photos capturing her in that look. So, you know, originally we thought that Millie Alcock Supergirl suit would be fairly hidden for the entire production, since obviously this movie you know, has a lot of filming inside a studio space rather than, you know, location or like outdoor filming. But now there are a few outdoor filming shots getting out there, so you never know. But obviously Warner Brothers, thus James Gunn, would be aware of this, and they still haven't revealed the suit as of right now. So maybe despite some of these photographers getting shots that you may have seen floating around online, they might not be too worried about it getting out there. But obviously, you know, I will cover it if that does happen. And if there's anything else I've forgotten, guys, I probably have. Just know that I will be following up on it. But obviously, you know, the Superman trailer and whatever comes out of Cinemacon tomorrow will probably be the talking point for the next few days, or, well, let's be honest, few weeks or months, really, as marketing ramps up into other stuff like TV spots, which tend to give away way too much, so be careful of that. But anyway, that is everything I'm going to get into in today's news roundup video, ladies and gentlemen. So let me know your thoughts on absolutely everything, every story, down in the comments below. It feels really good to be back. Again, bear with me tomorrow when it's Cinemacon. You might have my coverage on Wednesday. I might do a live stream. You never know. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. So keep an eye out on the channel. Maybe turn those notifications on, or, you know, click on the button again and set it from personalized to all to make sure you get that notification. But yeah, I hope you guys are well. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see all of you, DC family, in the next video. Goodbye.